Well, here we're back with my friend Greg DeMarco, and I'm Don Gertz. And we were talking a little bit, before we started this recording, about what we should be talking about. And we thought, one of the things that salespeople come across and is objections. And I think we want to ask ourselves the question: is it a real objection, or is it just a stall? So when is an objection, and when is it just a stall? So I'm going to let my friend Greg DeMarco just jump right in here and give us his pearls of wisdom and knowledge, and anyway.
Thanks, Don. Thanks for that lovely introduction. Yeah, pearls of wisdom or pearls for swine is the thing.
Cast
there.
your pearls before swine. Yeah.
Little spiritual analogy there, but yeah, I mean, objections. What are they? What do they mean? Where are we coming from? The whole nine yards. I think it's a great conversation for a lot of reasons. I mean, salespeople are always plagued with this notion of objections. How do you handle these objections? And
well, you got to close the sale, right? You got to close the sale.
Well, that's just it. And so what are the intentions, right? Obviously you want to close a sale and a deal, but are you serving them, or are you serving your pocket? So what are the intentions there? Is this purely a selfish or selfless thing that we're doing? And we need to understand that in our role to help make the right decision. But here's how I kind of look at the objection thing. There are legitimate objections. You and I talked about it just before the call. Legitimate objections are, if they're buying a house, for example, it's on a busy street, as you put it. Why? I'm not sure I want to live here on a busy street. So then you got to sort of talk through it. Then there are things that are stalls, I find, because they're just not sure. They have uncertainty. Uncertainty or certainty. These are the two big things in sales, right? Because if they're uncertain for a reason. Are they uncertain because they don't trust you? Are they uncertain because maybe they've overstepped their financial, line of where they can afford and where they can't? There's lots of reasons for stalling. And understanding that, I think, comes down to, as you pointed out, maybe understanding what kind of personality types they are too, right? In sort of seeing where that all lies. But you have to ask questions to get yourself into a situation where, have you qualified these people? Do you actually know all the ins and outs of what they're looking for? Do you understand that?
Yeah, I think the term qualifying your customer is often, in real estate, sometimes we think, well, if they've been to the mortgage broker, been to the bank, and the bank says, yes, you can spend X number of dollars on your house, then we think, okay, they're qualified. But there's so much more to qualification, I think, because you have to qualify them on what's, are their wants greater than their, are you must-haves greater, or what I'm trying to say is do they want more than they can afford? Really,
Yeah.
because that's one of the things that I think people make a mistake sometimes when they're buying a house is the bank says you can spend this much. So then really what they want to look at is they want to look at something is this high, so they in reality, if you went down here, if you spent 10% less than the bank said, financially you'd probably be way better off. But, we make fun of different generations saying that they're the entitled generation. But I think in reality, living in North America, where, most of us or many of us we live an entitled life. We get used to the comforts.
Careful, Don. Careful, Don.
I'm talking to myself here. We get comfortable, and we want those creature comforts. That's one of the things I've noticed about in real estate. When I started selling real estate, like in my, ages ago, 30, I forget, it's almost 40 now. But anyway, 39 years ago, a young couple would look at going into, they would go and they'd buy grandma and grandpa's little 2-bedroom house that grandma and grandpa built, from their sweat and everything. So the young couple would go and buy grandma's house and then fix it up and then sell it and then buy something bigger, and then they fix that up and then they buy something bigger. But today, what happens is that our buyers, they want to start off with where mom and dad are, right? So mom and dad bought the house, little grandma and grandpa's house, and then fixed it up. But now, that's where the kids seem to want to start, for that. So I think part of the qualification is what are your desires? Like what do you really want to accomplish, in that? So you could go off on a tangent there, but I think what is your qualification process? Do you talk to people not just about what they can afford, but what is it that you actually want, and why do you want, and how is it going to make you feel, if you get this?
Well, I think those are important questions. And I just find that, listen, for me, it's extremely important, and we've talked about this in other episodes, but for me, it's extremely important to get to know somebody. So the more you get to know them, obviously you can qualify them very, very easily, because as you build trust in the conversation, you start to understand their wants, needs, desires, however you want to coin it. And that goes a long way with eliminating false objectives, because once you start to understand what they want, then that's what you're going to show them. And so those objections become nullified, in my opinion, and they become a lot less important to them. But there's always going to be something. And like I say, if they're stalling, I can usually tell anyway, because if it's the type of objection that they're telling you, if it's something about the street or, noisy neighbors or the backyard isn't big enough, that's one thing, right?
Or it's only got a 2-piece ensuite, not a 3-piece, not a 4-piece.
Yeah.
Doesn't have an ensuite.
But if they start talking about, well, I don't know, maybe the financing or this, or they're humming and hawing, there's something that there's some kind of uncertainty going on that you need to uncover and ask, what's this about? Like, what is the uncertainty here?
Yeah, I think, you mentioned about the different personality styles. So, like, first of all, I think we have to recognize that you don't know if it's a stall or an objection until you ask the question. Until you
That's
ask,
right.
so you have to ask the question, like, are you interested in buying this? Well, no, I don't think so.
Exactly.
Like if you don't actually ask for the order, you're not gonna get either an objection or they'll just go off. But I think that when we encounter a stall, it's important to recognize what the reason for that stall is. And so like if we take the DISC personality method and apply that to it, you could say, okay, the D type of personality is the more direct, and they're looking to, they want the salesperson to give them options. So if you don't give a D type of personality options that they can make a decision quickly, they're not going to make the purchase. Where the I personality, when they're stalling, they're obviously not seeing how it's going to benefit them socially, because the social aspect of that of buying is a big deal for them. The S personality, now that's, they legitimately, they need to have time to make a decision. So sometimes if you're a D personality style salesperson dealing with an S personality style customer, sometimes you want them to hurry up and make the decision, but the more you push them to make the decision, the more they're going to back up and say, hey, hold on a minute, buddy, I'm out of here. So, understanding their personality types is very critical, I think, in knowing how to deal with the stall. The objection, I think, is then you have to look at it and say, okay, well, is this a legitimate objection? Is this something that they could live with or that they won't live with? Or is it, I think there's lots of different things that would come under that. The C personality style, if they're stalling, then maybe you haven't given them enough information. And that would be where the I personality style salesperson is, just hey, let's have a good time,
Let's have a good
and
time.
let's have a good time. Let's do this. If they end up with a C type of personality
Yeah.
buyer, the I personality doesn't necessarily think that they got to give them a whole bunch more information because that information is boring to them, but it's critical to the C personality style is that they get enough information. So
Yeah. Listen, in the end, I think the best course of action for anybody is qualify as much as you can, ask the right questions, and get to know your buyer. Because the more you do, like, this is just my experience. This is 40 years of experience talking here. The more you start to understand the person that you're dealing with, the less objections you're going to have, and the less that they're going to want to give you a stalling objection. Because if they get to know you and they like you and they trust you, you start to build a rapport that goes beyond that, where you can actually have an intelligent, honest conversation with somebody with the shields down so that you can actually help them. And if they know that you're trying to help them, that way they're going to be a lot more open with you. That's just my advice on that end, because I think that's extremely important. Just build some kind of rapport with them.
yeah, I agree with that. I think it's important for us too to understand what our personality style is,
Yeah.
because then we understand how we can communicate with them. Because, like I mentioned, the I personality style trying to deal with the C personality style, the C personality is going to drive them nuts, because, but if I know that, if I go into it, like, because I can look at it, I'm not an I. I mean, in case you guys didn't guess, but
Really?
yeah, I'm not an I personality, but
Uh,
I know that sometimes, you know, this I'm the C, so I know sometimes if somebody's not giving me enough information, then I'm out of there, right? Like, if all they want
yeah.
to do is be my friend, and it's just like I'm gonna stall, and I won't tell them the right reason. I'll just be
Yeah.
ticked with them because they're not providing me. They haven't qualified me well enough. Going back to your
Yeah.
comment, they haven't qualified me well enough to uh, find out why I'm not buying. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I think those are valid things. To me, it always comes down to the people, right? We're in the people business. No matter what, we're in the people business. Yes, it has to do with lifestyle choices, but in the end, I think if the more we can build that rapport and trust, the more that those types of objections, they just become nullified or very few in numbers. And that's because people start to trust you. If you're getting a lot of objections, what you need to do is question yourself and say, okay, why am I getting all these objections? Why am I not connecting with these people? What is it that I'm not doing? You need to ask these questions and then learn from it and make changes in order to be better.
I think it's important, though, too, to remember that we sometimes tend to think that if we don't make a sale, that we haven't overcome an objection. But I think a lot of times we don't make a sale because we actually haven't asked for the order.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Don. I think that's just because some salespeople just get nervous about that, but that's a sort of an integral part to the whole closing the deal. Are you ready to make a purchase?
Yeah.
Fair enough. Like, is this the right place for you, or however you word your
But
closing?
sometimes people don't want to answer that question, or sometimes people don't want to ask that question because they think that they look at it as saying, okay, if they don't, then they're rejecting me, right? So we don't like that rejection. So
Well, that's true, but I mean, hey, there's certain technical aspects to our job that we have to do. Performance indicators, key performance indicators, and one of them is
and
definitely
and
asking
that's
for the deal.
yeah, and that's important. So when you look at it, you say, okay, well, did I, different types of products require different approaches, right? So housing, very rarely have I ever, if ever, have I shown a person one house and they decided to buy it. usually they go and they look at more than one house. So I'm not looking specifically to sell them a specific house. I just want them to find the right house, right? So,
Well, you see, now that's an important distinction right there. That's what you should be doing,
yeah,
right?
whereas if I'm working in a like a project, where I only have like, I'm not like, as a realtor, I have multiple different properties that I can show people. But if I'm working specifically for a project for a developer, then that's a different approach as well, right? Because I only have access to that property, and I'm working for my developer, so I want to, find out, okay, I want to do a better job of closing that sale or of handling objections. Now, I'm not going to make all those sales because, the project just might not be suitable for the client. But, so there's a different approach, different way of looking at it, depending on what you're selling.
Yeah.
Or if you're selling TVs or something like that, then it's more of a commodity. And I think lots of times it comes down to value,
Well, it comes down to understanding what it is you're selling, and
yeah,
what is it? What is the need? What's the end result for my buyer? What is it? What is it they're looking for? And that's one of the most important questions when you're becoming a salesperson for whatever it is you're doing, whether that's selling yachts, selling houses, selling cars, whatever it is understanding what the end result is for your client.
yeah. What's their objective?
Yeah, because otherwise
Yep.
you're just talking. All you're doing, no wonder someone would have, say, buyer's remorse, or not want to buy from you, or just be frustrated with you if you're not clear on that outcome. Like, what is it? What is it you're doing? And I'll be honest with you, some of the new people that I've had to work with, I've never considered that. To me, that's an important question, right? It's not, they just want to learn, okay, what do I say if they say this? What do I say if they say
Yeah.
that? That's not, yeah, sure. If you're selling vacuum cleaners door to door, and that they're going to say, get lost, or I'm going to shoot you, what do you say? But no, you got to understand what it is, the outcome is that you're selling them, right?
Yeah, I was listening. I don't know where it was. It was just the last couple of days, and I was listening to somebody, and they said one of the questions that you can ask somebody is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how close are you to making this decision? And if somebody says, well, I'm a 6 or a 5 or a 7, the I didn't listen to the whole article, but what I did hear was that they said the next question that you should ask them is, what will it take to make you a 10? And I
I've
thought, well,
heard I've heard that I've
well,
heard that line.
that's kind of interesting. I mean, it is, but it's important, I think, to know where the person is, because um, when somebody's looking at housing, like I mentioned, they lots of times they come in, and the bank says you can spend this much money. They think that this much money is going to get them this. In reality, they should be looking at spending this, like you shouldn't necessarily spend all that the bank wants to give you,
Yeah.
but because, everybody that it's one of the, I always joke about a little bit about, our economy, the Bank of Canada, when the economy gets overheated and we get inflation, the Bank of Canada raises the interest rates to kind of beat the inflation. So what they do is they beat it back with a stick so badly that it ends up putting us into a recession. And then what they do is they lower the interest rates to stimulate the economy. And one of the ways to stimulate it is by increasing, the number of sales in real estate. So people go out and buy houses, because when they buy houses, they go out and they spend more money on new carpet, new flooring, new drapes, new blinds, new roof,
Yeah.
all these different things
It's
that they buy.
it's a cyclical thing.
Yeah, so it stimulates the economy. So, but So we look at it and say, okay, well, if I'm overspending on my housing, then I'm not going to have money to do the rest of the stuff. So you become house poor. And I don't think that's a very good idea for people to become house poor.
Yeah, I think this is a big topic because we can get into so many side topics from it. But listen, in the end, I think that's something that buyers have to deal with on their own. And you're right; it can get to a situation where they're buying something from you, and they're probably 20% more than what they can really afford. Some of them are a lot more than that. But the reality too is like when you were talking about trying to find out what stage of customers at in the buying process, out of 10, give me a number. Where are you at? I mean, if somebody said that to me, I'd be like 1. I don't like that kind of nonsense. I think people can smell that a mile away. If you want to find out where somebody's at, just ask them.
Yeah.
Like you just ask them, like, listen, because I think that to me smells of desperation or some kind of a lure or bait. And I'm not a stick and carrot kind of guy. So for me, and there are a lot of people out there who are like that. Trust me, I'm not saying that everybody's like me. They're not. But for me, it's like, and so in sales, when it comes to that kind of thing, I would be more apt to just say, is this the right house for you? Or like, where do you stand in are you close to making an offer? Or, like, I'd just rather be direct with somebody. And you don't have to be direct by being rude. You can be direct by just, following their personality type. Does this make sense to you? Is this, can you see yourself living here?
Yeah. There's different approaches to all of it. And I think that's part of the understanding your own personality style and understanding the style of your client. Because like you said, you're not a big carrot and a stick kind of a guy. But you're a 1, if somebody asks you that question, but,
I'd be like, that's just me though.
That's your D personality style coming out there, Greg.
I'm not a D. You got to be kidding me.
I think sometimes you are, but I think other times you're kind of a chameleon because you've been doing this so long. But anyway, that's I think it's an interesting topic, and for salespeople, I think understanding how you think and understanding how your client thinks goes a long ways on understanding whether or not something is truly an objection or just a stall. Yeah. And that gives you an idea on, once you understand what it is, then you know what direction to take with your conversation, right? So
yeah. No, I agree with you 100% there. Yeah.
So thank you, Greg, for your insight into this. It's been interesting and fun talking to you about it, and we look forward to our next conversation. So
absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
we'll
Don.
see you later, folks.
See ya.